dream of a life that is pleasant, a life where things are not very expensive in the market as we have today. And of course, we want cheaper transportation. We don't want to buy fuel at very exorbitant prices. You understand? We really want our lives, to move freely. There is money in circulation, not having issues where people can't feed and people are dying because they can't pay their medical bills, because no money. Yeah. And they're working, but no money. I mean, it's all, all just wrapped up in one word, and that's making life really better. And that is why we should stand up for the future. Now, I know there are so many organizations. There was a particular program summit organized by Budget. I don't know if you're aware of Budget. And they seem to monitor government operations and try to yes, exactly, and ensure that the government is doing what it's supposed to do and not just, keeping the masses blind over some issues as regards, things that affect the human beings and the average man on the street. And I'm really, really grateful that we get to talk about this on the show today. Of course, Mr. Busayo is a development enthusiast, and of course, he's got a master's in humanitarian and refugee studies. Now, quickly, before we start talking about standing up for the future, what's really the whole development thing all about for you? Is it more of like, making moves for people, helping people, charity and all of that? Was it in all for you?
Yeah, I mean, there are various classes of development, from the humanitarian perspective to which people would call charity, but it's not really charity.
Okay.
To the perspective where you have people become more interested in development. When you bring it in the context of Nigeria, which is a developing nation, there's a need for young people to begin to do the right things, make the right moves, in national building. And the government cannot do it alone. The government is handicapped, and in our case, the government is almost non-existent, if you really look at it. So there's a need for people, young people, to come in creatively. Now, because when you go into the civic space, the civil service, when you're quite young and you get in, you have to climb the ladders to go to the top before you begin to make decisions. But the development space gives you that opening where you can begin to create or cause change, right from anywhere you are. Right from your bedroom. You begin to discuss about things that can change the way things are going, better the lives of people, you understand. And it's far above charity. Charity is given to people, but this is making people get involved in the process. You understand?
So it's not a situation of someone being given a fish, but
being taught to get the fish.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the perspective we bring into the development space. And you'd bear with me that we call it the third sector. That's the sector where a whole lot of without the development space in Nigeria, we would have been very, very far. If you look at the movement from the military to the civil role, you had the NADECO, the CLO, civil liberty organizations. Those movements bettered something new, bettered the quest for democracy. After we got democracy, we had other organizations come up to fight tuberculosis, to fight HIV, to fight malaria, and now we're getting into another space where the social enterprise is taking over, where people begin to try to cause changes in their little sphere. So you tell people, you have to be transparent, you have to be accountable, you don't have to sit down, you have to ask government questions. This is the whole reality of, or the evolving of the development space to the point where we are now, where we're talking about socio-political issues and how to grow the country.
Wow, really, really amazing there. Now, when you talk about standing up for the future, now we've said a lot of things that, of course, as you're watching, you know the direction with which we're going on the show today. But what does standing up for the future really mean for you in the context with which we've introduced the program today?
Now, sincerely for me, I think standing up for the future is quite cool. It's a cool issue to discuss on, but the reality of standing up is actually standing. It's not in the talking. It's not in how much you analyze how people would have to stand from the various positions they are, but it's how people would be able to get more involved in the process of governance, to get more involved in social issues that concerns them, that happens around them. Because of the amount of the youth population we have currently,
we have tendencies of having people not really doing too much, or what we think people are not doing too much. A whole lot of them have resigned to fate just to live life how life comes to them. But there are people that have decided to take life by the seriousness it brings to them. So when you tell those kind of people to stand up for the future, they're already standing. You understand? So what I think should be the discourse now is how to get those people that have resigned to fate, get those people that just feel it's for themselves, their families and all, to change that perspective so that we begin to see this future like our thing. Because we are young today. In the next few years, we're still going to be in the shoes of our fathers, the people we castigate. You understand? So we have to begin to practice, to do the right things, to ask the right questions, to engage the right people, before we get to that level. One of the challenges I think the current system we're having now is going through is because I really think they didn't really start it how they should have started it. I mean, so we have this very silly notion everywhere that you don't ask an elder questions, or you don't tell an elder he's lying, and all those things. But if we begin to change that narrative from now, you discover that in the next 4 or 5 years, moving into a decade, moving into 10 years, the system would be more open. People would not even need to struggle, to make their voice heard. They will just speak, and their voices are re-echoed. Using the technological advancement we also have now in this time. So I think standing for the future is more of, man, get up, get more serious. And it's not just about you. It's not about you and your family alone. It's about the mass, of people that you would be speaking for. And when you speak for them, you inspire them to speak for themselves too.
Wow, really, really good talk there. Now, talking about people, for example, if we're going to use, the one that is, of course, trending, we hear people telling people, get your PVCs, get registered, and all of that. And a lot of people are dragging on it. But, of course, with the sequence of events that have been happening in Nigeria today, it's like, dawning on everybody to, really take their time to really stand up. But at the other end, you have people saying stuff like, well, it's always been like this before, during the time of Yaradua, during the time of, you can just begin to name the successive governments over the past years. And there seems to be this, will I call it boredom now, or laissez-faire attitude, like I don't really care as long as it doesn't have to do with the economic circumstances in my life. I don't really want to be part of it. Like, I like the word you use there, social issues. A lot of people seem to be, it's good to concentrate on economic issues because that's where your day-to-day living comes from.
That's the hustle.
How to make money. But talking about these social issues in the country, why do you think it's really been so hard and tough for Nigerians to really face them squarely and get involved?
Yeah, I personally think that the issue is more of the issue is more of quite discouraging. I sincerely. I know a lot of people that have told me, Busayo, we've done these things before. We've said these things before. It seems as if we're not making progress. But that's not true. You don't expect the system to change in a day. Systems change because people engage it continuously with the same consistency. Now, so when you want to cut a tree and you keep hitting everywhere, it seems like you don't have any impact. But when you keep doing it consistently, so today you hit that tree for 5 times, tomorrow you hit it for 5 times, push it into a year, depending on the magnitude, how large the tree is. The tree is you're going to see that you're making progress. I think that's what the system is now. But I sincerely sympathize with those people that will really want to give up. But we cannot give up. That's the truth, because the system is getting deeper. We're opening up. Nobody knew 10 years ago we could vote out a sitting president. What happened some 3 years ago.
That's right.
The system is opening up. The more we keep engaging the system, the more it keeps opening up. What I think the difference should be is how we engage the system. You understand? We had times where people were lackadaisical. I don't care who is the president. But people started caring who is the president. We had times when nobody asked what the budget was about. We just heard that budget had been signed. Nobody talked about the intricacies of the budget. But now we have people looking into the budget, and we can discover frivolous spendings in the budget. There were times when, even when the FOI came, the Freedom of Information Bill came into law, became law, people didn't know how to use it. But now we have people replying FOIs, government replying Freedom of Information requests from people. These things are happening. The system is moving. The system may be moving slow, but I would prefer slow movement than no movement at all. Now, so when you decide not to engage the system, you're letting the system move on its own, and there's no vacuum anywhere. You know, a wrong system thrives on the ignorance of people. When people become knowledgeable about how to make the system work and keep engaging that system, I think the word there is consistency. Consistently engaging the system opens up. And I tell you what, I work for Connected Development, an organization. We follow the money. We track government expenses in marginalized communities. In fact, yesterday I just came from Zamfara. You understand? Zamfara, you would not believe what is happening in Zamfara when it comes to education. The state is building a whole lot of primary schools, you know, everywhere in the state, in all the local governments in the state. I met with the SUBEB chairman of Zamfara, and the guy gave us all the information we needed to track the school project in Zamfara. This was not possible some 5 years ago, but it's possible now because of the efforts of young people. I mean, so the more we keep engaging the system, the more we keep interacting with the system may push us back, we push back, we keep asking the right questions. There were times when we sent FOI letters to state governments and they tell us over and out that the FOI Act doesn't work in their state, it's a federal law. We've gone to court, we've warned them in court that the FOI is actually a federal law, and as long as you're a federating unit of the federal government, the FOI is binding on you. I mean, that was a judgment that just came some 2-3 weeks ago, you know, from Ondo State. Now, so the system is getting open. I think this is not the time where people should be discouraged. I think this is the time people should give in more and go get your PVCs. I tell you the truth, if you have a bad leader, you would never have a good system. How do you have a good system? When you vote in the right people. Who are the right people? I don't know. You have to be convinced to vote for anybody you want to vote for. But personally, as an individual, and by the virtue of the work I do, I can know within myself that these are the people that I think should lead the country. These are the people that have led the country, and I'm not content with how they lead the country. I mean, in 2015, it happened. We're not content with the other government. We voted the government out. There's a government now. If you're content with the government, you vote for the government in 2019. But if you don't have your PVC, how do you vote? Now, people feel voting is overrated. No, voting is not overrated. I mean, it may seem like nothing is really changing, but you have to vote all the same, because when you don't vote, people are going to still win elections. Now, you can have the mouth to talk when you have voted in a candidate you want to vote in and the candidate gets in and is messing up. I can authoritatively look at this government in the face and say that this government has not done well because I voted in the government. With my PVC, I stood on the line, I stood under harsh conditions to vote the government. So I can blast at the government, I can say these policies of the government is not working because I joined the process in instituting that government. It is my fundamental human right. You know, so if you feel that the system is not working, so you don't need to get your PVCs, you need to sit at home. No, come on. You cannot change a system like that. Systems change. Emphasis on the word continuous engagement, persistent engagement. The more you keep engaging the system, the more the system opens up. Even if the system pushes you back, you push back at the system and it opens up.
All right. Well, if you just tune in, of course, you're watching Show Late. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we've got more to talk about right here on Standing Up for the Future. Stay with us. Everyone seeks a path, the true path. Some get lost while finding theirs. Others keep searching but never find it. On Show Lane, it's sure that will guide you on the right path to life's issues. Join us on nctv, 1 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's Show Lane, the surest way. Glad to have you back on the program. Of course, if you've just tuned in, I've got with me a great guest, Mr. Basaya. Once again, thanks for
Many thanks,
talking
man.
with us.
It's been
Okay,
fun,
we've
yeah.
done a lot of buttressing on the need for people to stand up, like just what you said is just in the word, just stand up. And if you're not standing, that is why we are here on the show, to guide you on the right path, okay?
Yeah, you have to stand up.
Yes, that's what Shirlane. Shirlane is all about putting you on track, putting you on the right path, and that's what we're trying to achieve today, this afternoon. Now, it's very, very important for us to really, itemize some of the areas where you think Nigerians are not standing up, because I know this topic is pretty big.
Yeah.
We were just talking about politics a while ago before the break. So what other areas do you think Nigerians are not standing up?
I think. Our whole lives are classified into the economic, the economic side. I mean, the economic aspect, the social aspect, the political aspect. Sometimes merged together, social, cultural, social, political, social, economic, and all these things. So, I mean, but I think we also need to look at the social space. We have Nigerians that are quite conscious. If you go to Twitter, a whole lot of conscious Nigerians dishing out their mind, go to Facebook, the same thing, Instagram, the same thing, but
What are we conscious about?
Yeah. I mean, that's a question, I think that we have to do more when it comes to social mobilization, and not just for politics now. I'm talking about a situation where Nigeria currently is going through a drug problem. A drug abuse problem. The codeine, and yesterday or day before yesterday, there was a ban on that substance. And I said to myself, that is just a level. Cocaine is banned for God's sake, but people still take cocaine. Banning the product is not just all that is to it, because you have to look at the other aspects that makes people take drugs.
And I think those are the root causes.
Root causes, that's the word. And if you're really looking for a durable solution, banning alone is not the solution. It's a step, but it's not the complete, the complete solution. You have to see that it's attached to governance. It's attached to governance. I tell you why. Now, the kind of educational system we go through is a kind of education that is a failure, even from the start. How do I mean? I go through school, I go through primary school, secondary school, I get into the university, probably do a second degree. I've not worked for one day in my life. I've just been going to school. Now, young people have a whole lot of time on their hands that they think that occupying the remaining time, when they get out of school is to do drugs. That's the truth. Now, so imagine if we have a system like is operational in developed countries, where when you're in secondary school, after your school, you close 2 or 4, you go to work. You work at a spa, you work at a supermarket, you work at a filling station, you park cars, you do all those little jobs that are not really serious jobs. You close, say, for like 6, 7 in the evening, and you have to go back to do some book work before you sleep. It takes away that free time for you to engage in a whole lot of vices, social vices.
That's right.
Failure of governance. Secondly, imagine if you have sports people, for example. One of the ways to take away people's attention from social vices is when they engage in sports. For example, you leave school, you have football training, and you know that your coach will tell you if you're playing football or if you're boxing or if you're running, you have to stay away from drugs. Those things don't work together. So because you do something you like, you wouldn't have that space for drugs. It will reduce the drug problem. Now, so there's a need to be proactive when it comes to social issues from young people. Lead campaigns, for God's sakes. The people that are drug addicts are not strangers to us. They live around us. Engage them. And I mean, when I'm talking about engaging them, I'm not telling you to tell them you're going to go to hell or something. You know how we could be religious. No, I'm talking about you engaging them in something that is worthwhile. I mean, bring them together, organize trainings for them. It's not rocket science. I mean, we have very dirty streets in Nigeria, in our states, in our local governments, around our areas. Young people should be able to mobilize themselves, get into the street, clean the street, for God's sake, without a pay. Young people should be able to mobilize for worthy ventures, worthy cause. I mean, there was not too young to run, the not too young to run campaign that were waiting for the presidential ascent. It was pioneered by young people. Those are social developments, for God's sakes. Who thought it was going to be possible for young people to present a bill to the National Assembly and the bill gets passed on the two platforms of the National Assembly, and what we're waiting for is a presidential assent? Young people. Who started budget? Young people. Who started connected development? Follow the money. Very young people. Now that's what I'm saying. So in the social space, young people we have the abilities to ideate. And as long as you can ideate, it is possible to fulfill what comes to your mind. So young people must be able to see that. I mean, it's not just engaging the political space or engaging on social media. You have to make actual movements. Elections are not won on social media. Elections are won when you mobilize people. I know how many people I mobilized to vote for, the current government in 2015. In my house, on my street. I mobilized them to vote. Now, those are social ventures young people can undertake, to make the system better. You understand? So it's not just restricted to the political space alone. When you get into the social space, and when we talk about the social space, we're talking about culture, we're talking about education, we're talking about welfare. We have so many young people that are giving back to internal displaced persons. We have so many young people that are teaching people how to do. I mean, there is a whole lot that can be done. I mean, young people are doing great. But I tell you, there is a larger percentage of young people that are not doing anything. Those are the guys who are inspiring to stand up on the show today.
Great work. Now, we have been, of course, looking at the various ways with which, we've not been stepping up our plate.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the opportunities, because sometimes when you say it's opportunities, some people probably just look beyond social media. Now, we mentioned organizations just like Budget. We talked about Connected Development, where you are a project manager at.
Yeah.
Now, apart from those, what other platforms and opportunities do you think that you can really give out and share with our audience today so that they can actually take advantage of these platforms and engage these platforms to ensure that they solve issues and problems in their local communities? I remember you were just talking about Zamfara. How did you even get to Zamfara in the first place? Who reached out to you guys?
So at Connected Development, we track government expenditures in marginalized communities. I mean, communities that really do not know what is happening in the center, that really do not know what is happening in government. So, we work with government budget, we work with tender documents. So, I mean, in my data mining, of which I do a whole lot of research and data management when it comes to government expenses, I mean, I discovered Zamfara was tendered for some projects, SUBEB projects, that's basic education projects. And, I contacted my colleagues in Zamfara. There's a project going on around Zamfara. Can you go around and see if there's... So they were like, yeah, the project was going on, and bam, we're on our way to Zamfara. That's what we do as an organization.
You look out for those situations.
Yeah, those specific situations. You understand? And in Zamfara, I remembered we had a meeting with young people, about 50 of them, and we were telling them how they can be able to engage their system. So when these guys came together, they didn't know it was possible to ask the government what the government was doing with the money, that were budgeted for. When we open these realities to them, that, I mean, it is even your right to ask questions from government. It is your right to know how much the government is using to construct the road that leads to your street. It is your right to know how much the government is using to develop healthcare facilities. Why do you want to have that information? Because you want to follow the money to see that the government uses exactly that amount of money for that project. Because we've seen situations where the government says, for example, it was spending 5 million on a school building, and the government ends up spending 1 million from it. I saw that situation recently in Kogi State, where the community had to come out and say, no, we don't want this project. Why would the community come out and say that? We had conscientized them to know that this project is actually bigger than this. According to the tender, this project wasn't supposed to be renovated. It was supposed to be a new building. So the community was saying to the government that, no, we don't want this project. We want the exact thing that was tendered for. When you conscientize communities, they become awake. They become woke, in the words of Debola Williams, and they begin to ask the right questions. You understand? So we went Zamfara and we talked to these young guys, about 50 of them, and I tell you, when these guys left, You know, we started receiving calls on how they've been going, you know, into places around their areas that they see government projects. They're following up on the project, sending pictures. We have an online portal, www.ifollowthemoney.org, where people register to, and they send barrage of pictures. They'll tell you this is the construction that is going on in so and so place. This is the government has not given us the amount. We teach them how to get the amount, write an FOI letter requesting for the amount, the specifics of the project, the bill of quantities for the project. In Kaduna, for example, we had conscientized people in some communities, in some 4 local governments, Kajuru, Zango, Kataf, Jama, you know, in Kaduna State. And people woke up in the morning to go to those project sites to see what the contractors were doing. They went to see that the contractor was using the exact amount of cement to make XYZ amount of blocks. They went to see the rod that was used for, the decking of the pillars. To know that it's according to what was written. If it's 3 mm, if it's 5 mm, people got that detail because they got that information. Imagine if we didn't provide that information to them. The construction of those schools may have gone, you know, haywire. But we have a system where we have to hold people accountable. Now, so we're telling people, what I'm saying to young people now is, you cannot sit down and say there's no opportunity for you. You have to look for it. You can even create something. I mean, when I finished from University of Ibadan on my master's degree, I was willing, even with a master's degree, I was willing to volunteer for any organization I could find around. I went to Maiduguri, I went to Adamawa State in search for, you know, humanitarian spaces where I could work for free. You understand? So, I would really understand with young people when they want to bring up the issue of, I mean, you can't work for free. You can't do all those things.
How do you fend for yourself?
You know, how do you fend for yourself? It's a reality. That's why, connecting it with what I said some moments ago, if we started doing these things when we were in the secondary school, in the university, would have been used to it now.
You know, thank God that you mentioned the fact of secondary school, because I remember back in the day during my time, you know, growing up where we had corpus close to where we're living, we used to have like this children's club and all that, where they teach us, and talking about even today I'm live on national television. I mean, it's as a result of the seeds that those core members sowed, you know, sowed into our lives, you know, gathering children together, teaching us how to sing, how to act, how to face the camera, how to stand in front, you know, some of all those little seeds. And we have that, you know, inspiring us at a very young age and letting us know that we can make a difference in our society. We can stand up, we can fight, we can be a voice in our generation. But, you know, I don't know what has happened, you know, when you fast forward 15 years later, and now, you know, there seems to be a lot of kind of distraction, maybe because of the emergence of social media. So it's like these kids of today are easily engaged with all these vices, and, you know, we have big celebrities that they can look up to, and, you know, and all of that. So I see that in a way of distracting, you know, from them to really be conscious of some of these issues, because even some of these big celebrities don't really use their platform and use their, how will I call it, their influence, you know, to be able to create change. I think it's just a few of them. When you look at the likes of Two-Face Idibia, of course, he's done works with refugees and all that, and released promotional tracks for malaria and some other stuff that I'm aware of. But really, with all this I've said now, what are your thoughts? Would you say that things are better now in terms of how the young ones and people are actually standing up to their rights and having a voice?
Now, so very quickly, I just want to chip in something that you cannot use social media as an excuse of what has changed. Social media is an improvement that should have made things better. The bigger problem is the system. The system doesn't teach us to give back. The system teaches us to take. Now, so the 15 years we were talking about, I was a beneficiary of all those things too. I mean, coppers came to my house. I mean, I grew up in Benue State. Coppers came to my house. You know, we related with a whole lot of them. I always wanted to become a copper, you understand, and all. And it was inspiring. You know, there were very friendly people and all. It's still happening now, but on a very low key. You know why? Now, our demands have increased. We don't have it as a consciousness yet, because our institutions has not given it to us as a consciousness. Now, if we have a consciousness of engaging the system right from, I go back to our secondary schools. See, it becomes a habit when you get to the university and when you leave the university to give back to the
I
society.
see.
Even the people we look up to as mentors today, the political mentors, the business mentors, they lack that virtue. That's why you see people make a whole lot of money and they cannot give back to society. That's why you see people get into governance and steal money. If you had started giving back to society from when you were young, a consciousness would have grown in you that you have to keep giving back to society no matter the level you get to in life. But that disconnect, that social disconnect of giving back to society is a major problem. You know, but talking about, you know, having people to, social media doesn't affect people in marginalized communities. You know why? They don't have access to it. I can tell you that authoritatively. They don't have access to it. These are the people that don't even know if they have governments at all. If you go to some of these places, you don't get network, even call networks are not there. So what's the problem? The problem is governance. It's a systemic problem. And until we solve that systemic problem, we are not going anywhere. That's why we're telling young people to stand up. Because I tell you the truth, the people you look up to may not go back to these marginalized communities, but you and I can go back to those communities.
And reach them right where they are.
Right where they are. We don't have to bring them to the city. We have to go back into the communities. We have to rearrange our educational system. It is, you know, it has failed totally. Because, I mean, a whole lot of people went through schools without using what they go through schools to study. Our education is just to fulfill our righteousness. We must tell ourselves that truth. We have to go back to our curriculum and fix it. A curriculum that doesn't have anything to do with our realities is a failed curriculum. We must have to go back to that place where we ask ourselves, what is the purpose of education? What is the purpose of schools?
I mean, you talked about the fact that, you know, people go to school and then they come back and they are demanding, you know, from the government instead of them to be giving back.
The system has taught them how to demand, not to give back. The system kills your creativity. That's what we're saying. A whole lot of what we're doing now is not what we got from school.
Very funny.
That's the truth.
But truth, yeah.
It's what we were able to develop with ourselves, from ourselves, based on our exposure to other things that were not taught to us from schools. It's a reality. So until we fix that system that doesn't, you know, make us want to give back, and sincerely, some people have actually given back to the society and they are frustrated on giving back. I know a friend who told me she wanted to have trainings, phonetics trainings for children in government schools, in this FCT.
And what happened?
The board didn't let her do it.
Wow.
That's a system that stifles other systems. She wanted to do it for free. We have people in Nigeria that wants to evaluate our budgeting system for free. The system wouldn't bring them in. The system wouldn't do that. You know how we struggle to get data? The system will refuse to do that. So that is failure of governance on a level. Education, I mean, it's failed.
Okay, now we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how we can maneuver our way through all these challenges, okay? Of course, if you just tuned in, where have you been? The show is Sure Lane, and of course, today we're looking at a very important topic today, talking about standing up for the future or stepping up, whatever, as far as there's a greater future ahead, okay? We'll be right back, so stay with us. Everyone seeks a path, the true path. Some get lost while finding theirs. Others keep searching but never find it. On Sure Lane, it's sure that will guide you on the right path to life's issues. Join us on nctv, 1 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's Sure Lane, the surest way. Glad to know you're still watching Sure Lane right here on Nigeria Central Television. If you just tuned in, of course, you are watching Mana Balagbogbo and, of course, Mr. Busayo right here on Sure Lane. Now, you were talking about a lot. Now, in the quest to, you know, standing up, stepping up for the future and all of that, letting your voice be heard, It's not definitely not a smooth ride coming from you. I mean, it's like your day-to-day job, something you do that you do 24 hours a day. Really, how do you navigate through all these challenges to make a success out of everything that you make up your mind to do to change things?
I mean, you have to be able to take the risk. It's risky. When I left UI, I had an option to stay in Lagos, probably get a banking job, and I mean, just live on a low key. But that wasn't my thing, you know, so I had to first of all understand what I wanted to do, what my life was tied to, what I had passion for, you know, and that is development, personally. I mean, peace and conflict issues and development. So for me, I think I was able to find that thing I really, you know, could wake up to do in the morning. I mean, that thing that would keep me going, you know, and when I discovered it, I was ready to give my all. I told you, I went to Adamawa State, you know, and spent over 13 hours on the road, by the way, you know, from Abuja to Adamawa. I don't know how that happened, you know, and I went to all the IDP camps in Adamawa State. I spent close to 14 days in Adamawa State going from one. I got to Mubi. I mean, it's quite unfortunate that Mubi had some explosions some days ago. I got to Mubi. I got to the brinks of Sambisa Forest. I was ready to, I told myself, I mean, if anything happened, I mean, it's better to die on the side of passion than not to do anything, you know. And I was willing to volunteer to work for free, use knowledge I have gained from the school, from research, you know, to give back to the society, to discuss the deeper issues that people would not want to discuss because it's politically incorrect. You know, like when it comes to internal displacement. Nobody's talking about durable solutions to internal displacement. Everybody's talking about how to take care of displaced people. No. Internal displacement is a sign of something bigger. And the bigger thing is governance failure.
So what are those durable solutions?
Now, the durable solutions are according to you know, international best practices, you know, was actually to ensure that their lives were better, and to ensure that what happened, what led to the displacement was addressed. The issues that led to the displacement was addressed first of all. Now, when those issues are corrected, you have to either rehabilitate them. You know, you have to they may choose to stay in their new places, they may choose to go back. So repatriation comes back, you have to take them to their places, but you must first of all grant them security, because what displaced them in the first place was security. I mean, so these were the things that we expected governments to begin to handle. You know, we call them the 3 R's: rehabilitation. You know, there's this one you have to keep them at their places. I mean, resettle them, resettlement. You know, and all. But nobody was discussing about that because it wasn't economically. What's the right word? There was no takeout from it. I mean, it didn't have to do with too much procurement. So supply of foods was procurement. So you have to feed mature adults morning, afternoon, evening from 2014 to 2018. Imagine how much has gone, you know, in that process, you know, and fighting insurgency is another big issue. We've not started addressing those issues that caused displacement in the first place. We're still trying to treat the symptoms, you know, from the displacement. That was what I was talking about then, you know, and I was really involved in all this, and I really wanted to see that the monies that got into the Northeast were expended how it was supposed to be expended. That's what brought me to follow the money. You understand? Because I was trying to let's follow this money. Let's see if this money that's come into the Northeast has been used well. Because I know, I don't need a prophet to tell. I know that there's been sharp practices in the Northeast, and we cannot run away from that reality. As regards these funds that has come in, I mean, we petitioned, we sent an FOI to NEMA. You know, Connected Development sent an FOI to NEMA. You know, some at about last year. You know, NEMA hasn't replied our FOI to tomorrow. You know that like 6 directors were suspended from NEMA, you know, some few weeks back. You know, this is a reality. Nobody's talking about those real issues. We're just talking about the surface dressing issues. But I had to come to that point where I told myself, Busayo, you have to, you know, do what you have passion for. You have to go for it. You have to do it the right way. You have to talk about it. And I mean, I'm not where I really want to be, but we're making progress. The system is opening up. We are engaging the system. People are beginning to, on their own, give us information. People are beginning to tell us there's this money here we want to follow. And what we're just doing is giving them technical support on how to follow the money, because it's a scientific process also. And it's open. I mean, it's open to anybody who wants to follow the money. It is very, very open. It's a process, and it's not difficult. It's a process you can, understudy for some few hours, and you get to the field and follow money around your environment, and all. But the truth of the matter is, we cannot just sit down and complain about these issues. We have to engage the system. That is the process of standing up, engaging the system.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much. But before we go, I really want to ask you this question now. There might be somebody probably who lives in a community that's not so big, and then you have these forces in terms of authority that are doing a lot of ills and evil. And how do you work in such a way that you don't kill yourself in the process? Because I know sometimes they go after you, especially when you're against authority. I mean, we've seen it play even on the national level, and even amongst political peers. You're against what this person is doing, and then there's this incessant attacks all the time. So I'm looking at someone who is in that local community, and then the forces are raging on you. Now, how do you go about in ensuring that there is justice, and you stand up, you speak for yourself, you step up without hurting yourself in the process?
Now, unfortunately we have the kind of justice system we have in Nigeria that is not really justice for the people that you understand what I'm talking about. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot argue with a free and open process. I mean, so for everything I've said today, I have data backing it up. So if you come for me, I mean, it's good. It's going to make me trend. I don't care if people are going to come for me. But as long as you give me my day in court, I don't have a problem with that. I would show you everything I've done. That's why I said the process is a research process. You cannot argue with the proceeds of research. You have to go and do your own research. So personally, I don't have a problem with that, as long as I'm not blackmailing, or I'm not, just imagining things and saying things. There's data backing up what I'm saying. I don't have a problem. But I know that people in local communities may have that issue. The truth of the matter is, see, you cannot run away from what you have to do. On a most serious note, you cannot run away from what you have to do.
Even if death is staring
at you in the face. I mean, it's only cowards that run away from realities. You shouldn't run away from realities. I mean, just face it. You have to be careful, though. You have to be very, very careful. You have to be sure that what you're doing is the right thing. I know what I'm doing is the right thing. You have to have your facts, checked in, correctly. Then you have to also be very, very open-minded. And you must be able to take risks.
I mean, looking at the likes of Martin Luther King, and all these revolutionists, I mean, a lot of them lost their lives, but I mean, years from now, 100 years, I mean, the legacy is there, and I think that's what everyone is looking forward to.
Yeah, true.
So once again, Mr. Busayo, thank you so
much
for being with us today.
Thanks.
And probably I know people are watching and they would love to reach out to you. Can you give us your website, your email address, and all that, in case people want to have something to do with Connected Development?
I mean, amazing. Okay, Connected Development, www.connectedddevelopment.org. That's .org. Okay. That's the website. We have a citizens platform where we're mobilizing citizens to ask questions, to follow the money. That is www.ifollowthemoney.org. ifollowthemoney.org. And if you need information on anything we do, if you feel that you have a money to be followed around your vicinity and you want to know how to follow the money, it's quite simple. Right. It's www.ifollowthemoney.org. You can also send us a mail at info@connecteddevelopment.org.
Of course, with this over 45 minutes of discussion, I hope we've been able to convince and not confuse you on your role in ensuring that you stand up, you step up for the future. Don't sit back, don't relax. Ensure you do what you ought to do. And even if death is staring at you at the face, just make up your mind and ensure that you're part of this movement of the new generation of people who will move Nigeria to the next level. Once again, I want to thank you for coming to the show. Thank you so much,
Many thanks, my
for
brother.
being here.
Many
My name is Mana Balagbogbo, and that's a wrap on Shore Lane today. See you another time. Everyone seeks a path, the true path, Some get lost while finding theirs. Others keep searching but never find it. On Sure Lane, it's sure that will guide you on the right path to life's issues. Join us on nctv, 1 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's Sure Lane, the surest way.